Hello and welcome back, Sharkers, to another episode of Deep Dives with Sharks. My name is Alex, and I'm the host of this thing, and I'm just trying to bring peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire of sharks. Anyway, I appreciate y'all sticking with me while I was gone for 2 months on another impromptu hiatus. But I have a little rundown slash update. I traveled over 11,000 miles since May 22nd through June 15th, and I saw zero sharks. So, America, why are there no sharks in the middle of our country? Feel like that needs to be fixed, among with many other things. But anyway, I should be done with travel for a little bit, which is exciting, at least I'm hoping so. And I should be able to settle into a rhythm and be more productive. It's also been requested that we do another movie review, so that will be coming along with, of course, our annual Shark Week versus Shark Fest reviews once I actually watch the programming because I was a little bit busy and missed most of it. I'm still trying to get this more uniform and still streaming on the weekends to talk many things sharky. So follow the links in the tab link in the description so that you'll be able to get to all the social medias. But here we are, getting this episode out once again, and I'm very glad to have you all here. Now, to stay up to date on everything Deep Dives with Sharks, hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Amazon Music, or anywhere else that you get your podcasts at Deep Dives with Sharks. Feel free to ask any questions, share any comments, or any shark-related content on the social media and in the comments. And I did want to thank a couple people that I think recently found the stream, or the podcast, I'll say, as they did a comment on like every episode that they had listened to, which is incredible, and I do really appreciate that. And I think we're also really close to hitting 2,800 followers, which is incredible. So I want to thank you guys all very much for all your support. But I do have a little bit of a correction slash question corner for this episode. I have been asked some more questions since last episode, and I figure I'll answer them here. So feel free to ask questions in the comments or DMs, and I'll answer them here occasionally so that every episode isn't a long question corner and then 4 minutes of sharks. I feel like a lot of us have started listening to a podcast and then realized that the intro becomes longer than the content, and that's not as fun to listen to. So here we'll go ahead and we will try to figure out how to make this a nice balance. But first off, I got a question from Ted and Georgia. They asked how many bones a basking shark would have. As I had previously mentioned, they have no bones besides a jaw, as many other sharks. And I haven't come across really any sharks that have bones, just cartilage and similar structures. But there are so many sharks to cover still, so there could be one out there. Plus, researchers are always finding new sharks and could discover a bony shark, so we'll have to wait and see. I do want to clarify a little bit, though, because, of course, having the jaws and teeth count as a bone can be a little bit confusing, especially for a large shark like a basking shark, where you don't really see their teeth, because whale sharks and basking sharks appear to be toothless, but they actually have hundreds of very small hooked teeth. They're easy to see if you're, like, right next to it and, like, being its dentist, but of course, if you're just looking at a picture of it, it's very hard. They don't use those teeth to hold or bite prey, as they are filter feeders, but those teeth are believed to help with filtration. All this to say, depending on the source, sharks will have anywhere from 0 to 1 bones, depending on if they count the jaw, and others will count the teeth, which gives a wide range. But yeah, they do have very few bones, and they are pretty much made up entirely of cartilage. There also was another comment, which unfortunately I couldn't find, but I remember seeing it. Someone asked after watching episode 2, I believe it was, that due to further research, is it still not recommended to punch sharks? Which, amazing question. And I did want to update this a little bit and I kept forgetting. So here we are. But after looking more into it, you should never just go punch a shark for no reason. And you should avoid touching sharks in general because, similar to dogs or other animals, we don't know how temperamental they'll be. So they could perceive like a touch that's just supposed to be like a nice friendly pet as an attack, and then they'll retaliate and bite you, which is not great. But you should try to keep some distance from larger sharks, and it won't be easy to redirect them with like a gentle push. You'll actually have to have like a little bit of force behind it. So having something to keep that distance between you and the shark is never a bad idea. Usually there's like shark bullies or things like that. Those will be really helpful because it'll bite that instead of your hand if it doesn't like where it was touched. Now, if a shark does bite you and is holding on, then yeah, punching it is not a bad idea at all. Go for the parts that'll be a bit more sensitive, like the eyes or nose, as the ampullae of Lorenzini will go into a frenzy when it's touched, and it can cause them to open their mouth. Now, if you get bit and the shark lets go and is swimming away, and you decide you're going to go fight it in the parking lot, it's not really recommended because you probably already need medical attention and that shark is not going to be in the parking lot anyway, so you're just kind of wasting time. But the TLDR version is you don't punch sharks in general or for fun. Try to have something to help push a shark away if it's getting too close for comfort. But of course, if a shark is biting you, punch it. Like, don't just sit there and be like, well, Alex told me not to punch this shark, but it is currently eating my foot, so stop that. Not like you swing on it. That's fine. That's the common sense here. If you're in danger, punch a shark. If not, don't punch a shark. There we go. Now, getting into the actual sharks for this episode, and I did say sharks because we are, of course, dealing with another 3-shark episode. The first shark we're going to be talking about is the blue shark. The blue shark is the only shark in their genus and are found in deeper waters of temperate and tropical environments. They vary in size by gender, with males growing to be about 1.82 to 2.82 meters, or 6 to 9.3 feet long, and females tend to grow to be about 2.2 to 3.3 meters, or 7.2 to 10.8 feet long. So if they want to get a little bit bigger, they just identify as the other gender and they change. Not actually, it's just a little funny haha, but females are bigger. They tend to have sleek bodies with a smaller dorsal fin, very long pectoral fins, and their tail is similar to a nurse shark, although closer to equal on top and bottom, but it does still have a little notch at the tip. They tend to look surprised to see everyone's here, as their eyes are large and tend to have a pupil, so you can see a little bit of the whites of their eye. Their mouth is slightly open, and they have an elongated snout. They do really appreciate that everyone came to their surprise party, and they were 100% surprised. They tend to weigh between 27 and 55 kilograms, or 60 to 121 pounds for males, and for females, they go anywhere from 93 to 182 kilograms, or 205 to 401 pounds. Larger females have gotten up to 204 kilograms, or 450 pounds. So, which I think it might have been 105, because initially I'm now realizing that the 205 is less. Anyway, I think I did my numbers wrong. I apologize there. The blue shark has 5 senses, similar to many other requiem sharks, that include vision, hearing, lateral line, which is a sensory organ that helps detect vibrations and changes in water pressure, which is according to Google. Electroreception, so that system that allows them to sense electronic pulses in the water, such as heartbeat, and also chemoreception or chemoreception, that helps to determine food sources such as fish stress juices released into the water. They also have special eyes compared to other sharks, as they like being anywhere from the surface of the water to 350 meters or 1,150 feet. So their eyes are able to adjust to that bright and very dim light settings. So that's also why you can see the pupil a little bit. They are given full 360-degree vision vertically, and up to about 338 degrees horizontally. So they can't see completely around themselves, but they're pretty darn close to it. For reference, humans have about 180 vision, I believe it is. I think a little bit more. They cover a wide range of the ocean, as far north as Norway and as far south as Chile. So pretty much everywhere except for Antarctica and the North Pole. They are mostly found in water temperatures between 12 and 20 degrees Celsius or 54 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but have gone from 3.9 to 31 degrees Celsius or 39 to 87.8 degrees Fahrenheit, which I will say Celsius makes so much more sense for measuring temperatures. Fahrenheit's a lot more specific, but when I'm trying to explain to a European that it's 106 degrees and they think that everything's just boiling, it is pretty dang hot out, but we're not all just catching on fire. Well, we do have wildfires. Anyway, blue sharks, like many other sharks, migrate across the ocean during seasonal changes, as well as looking for more food or better environments. They usually swim around 1.3 kilometers an hour during the day, but are more active at night, swimming at about 2.8 kilometers per hour. Now, these bursts occur throughout the water column, as these sharks will search for food in deeper than 100 meters if necessary. They do tend to move closer or further from the surface, depending on temperatures, and if they need to warm up more. But sometimes they do it just to work on a tan, because they are rather blue. They're not quite as blue as a member of the blue man group, but much more blue than a sand tiger shark. Now, blue sharks tend to eat a lot of different organisms, as they inhabit many areas of the ocean. Well, pretty much the entire ocean except for, the North and South poles, but they don't like the cold. Anyway, they prefer squid over everything else, but will also eat blanket and pelagic octopus, cuttlefish, lobster, crab, shrimp, and many bony fish. They yearn for the bones, since sharks don't have bones. I've been talking a lot about cartilage and sharks recently. I'm gonna eventually get off that topic, I swear. But outside of the bony fish, they also eat smaller sharks, some birds, and porpoise and whale blubber. Now, blue sharks benefit from pack hunting as they can stir up a bait ball that forces fish towards the surface. They can then catch their prey easier. It's easier to catch things in a group versus an individual, unless it's like a shark. They like individuals sometimes, small fish. Anyway, there's a whole thing, a tangent I can go on, but I won't. You can see bait balls a lot while you're at the beach, as the water tends to look like it's boiling from the surface. But that's just because the fish are all towards the surface and are trying to get away from whatever is currently hunting them. Now, just because you see a bait ball, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a shark there. Other animals like dolphins or fish like tuna will stir up bait balls while hunting. Blue sharks are prey for larger sharks such as great whites or tiger sharks, but have also been hunted by orca, which is why I'm not a huge fan of orcas, because they just eat too many sharks. But not only do these sharks have to worry about larger sharks and orcas, but also parasites like the tetraphyllidine tapeworm, and mammals like California sea lions, northern elephant seals, and Cape fur seals. So real quick, blue sharks, you and I got to have a quick chat here. You have to step it up. Great whites will try to eat all these things, and y'all are getting got by them. So we got to work on it, okay? Thanks. Now, humans don't encounter blue sharks in the wild often, as they like the open ocean, and we don't really hunt them. But there have been only 13 bites by blue sharks on humans from 1580 until 2013. Now, since 2013, there have been over 500. I'm kidding, there's been 0. They're still sitting at 13 bites total, so humans don't interact with them very often. They have been unsuccessfully kept in captivity on multiple occasions, but have either died or been returned to the ocean after a few months. They are relatively easy to feed and transport, so that's not the problem. The problem is that they don't do well with flat surfaces and tend to injure themselves. So kind of a little bit of a roast session as like who they get hunted by and getting got by fish tanks, but that's also why it's very important for zoologists and zookeepers and aquarists in the aquariums to know what animals they're taking care of. Animals can be very susceptible to injury or illness, and not knowing these things can be very detrimental for the animal. Now, blue sharks are listed as not threatened for their conservation status, as they tend to do fine in the wild and they really aren't messed with by humans, so it's really exciting. But that's what I have for the blue shark. Of course, any questions, any comments, concerns, anything of that nature, you can always send them over to me on the social media, anything in the tab link or in the comments. Now, going on to the next one, we have the Pyjama Shark. Now, Pyjama Sharks are also known as the striped cat shark, as they are a member of the cat shark family. Now, it gets its name from the stripes that run down the length of its body, which mimic striped pajamas. And for the adults listening, the Pyjama Shark did not inspire that movie. That's from World War II. And for the kids listening, don't worry, it's just striped pajamas. This shark is very different from other cat sharks, as it grows to be a bit larger at 1.1 meters or 3.6 feet. And around 79 kilograms or 17 pounds. Now that puts them at a very small side for sharks, as the average is about 5 feet, so they are a couple feet shorter than that. And if you're over 5 feet tall, congratulations, you are taller than the average shark. Now, Pyjama Sharks have a very flat head. It's almost like someone stepped on their nose. They have barbels that hang off of their nose, but they don't reach their mouth. The snout comes almost to a blunt point, so similar to a tiger shark, but it's much more flat. I don't believe I've ever had to go over a shark's nostrils before, as they usually tend to operate similar to ours, but instead of smelling air, they smell water. But today we get to talk about a Pyjama Shark's nostrils because they're different. Now, they have 3 lobes, one for in-current, one for excurrent, and then they have the barbel, which is also part of the nostril. And I couldn't find a whole lot on what those barbels do, so I'm assuming they operate similar to other fish, just helping with sensing things around them. Their eyes are horizontally oval, meaning that you take an oval and you put the long ends on the top and bottom, and boom, Pyjama Shark eye. Now, their eyes are also rather wide set compared to other sharks, so for a little bit of clarity, they're not quite as far apart as Sid the Sloth from Ice Age. They're also not hammerhead length, but if you take like a blacktip reef shark and then put the eyes a little bit wider, then there you have it. It's about how far wide their eyes are. They have a deep ridge that runs under their eye, which looks pretty neat. The Pyjama Shark has a slender body that becomes more narrow towards the tail, so they kind of start narrow, get a bit wider, and then get narrow again. Almost kind of like a torpedo would. Their pectoral fins are slightly large for their body, but the two dorsal fins are very small comparatively. The dorsal fins sit further back on their body, with the first one being about 3/4 of the way down their back, and the second being just before the tail. All their fins, excluding their pectoral fins, are rather small, and that does include their tail. Their tail is taller on the top than the bottom, as they are bottom-dwelling fish, and usually fish that have longer tails on top are bottom-dwelling, as they want to make sure they're not going to drag their tail along the floor, which could cause injury, and then of course that can cause so many more complications. So just a nice little evolutionary thing to help out. Now, they have 18 to 25 rows of teeth on their top jaw, depending on the individual, and 14 to 24 rows on the bottom. The Pyjama Shark's teeth are shaped somewhat similar to a frilled shark, where they have a longer central cusp, and they will have two smaller cusps on either side, which creates a tricuspid tooth. Now, cat sharks tend to have thicker skin, as they are a smaller species of shark, thus providing a little bit more protection. The Pyjama Shark, being a cat shark, also has thicker skin, which helps to protect against predators like crabs or other smaller fish that can't bite them. It doesn't help a whole lot, evidently, especially if larger sharks are able to eat them and other large fish. But, at least a crab that usually goes for things that have already died won't eat them, so that's good. Pyjama sharks are found around South Africa, especially the southern tip. They like waters that are as deep as 4 meters or 13 feet, so rather deep, but they do go much deeper, about 50 to 100 meters, or 160 to 330 feet. They prefer rocky reefs as they can utilize caves, which are one of their preferred habitats. When hunting, Pyjama sharks tend to go for bony fishes, such as anchovy or hogfish, smaller sharks and rays, as well as egg cases, bivalves, cephalopods, and crustaceans, which most sharks do enjoy eating cephalopods and crustaceans. We can kind of just lump them all together in that one. They are opportunistic feeders and will take advantage of whatever they can get, including ripping off tentacles from an octopus or cuttlefish, which I do believe both of those are able to regenerate those tentacles. So it is rather kind of them to consider that it will grow back before taking it, but they also are sort of practicing sustainable food sourcing in that sense. If it'll grow back, you can get it later again. It's why you gotta make sure you're doing sustainable fishing. Anyway, that's dumb. But the Pyjama Shark has been observed ambushing chaka squid during mass spawnings, as they like to hide among the rocky surface and wait for the squid to descend to deposit its eggs on a rocky surface on the reef, and then they go eat them. Of course, it's always hunt or be hunted because they are hunted by broad-nosed seven-gill sharks, and are that shark's preferred food source. And that also made me realize that I'm not sure why they made the saying a dog-eat-dog world, because you'd never really hear about dogs eating each other, but you always hear about sharks eating each other. And I mean, they really can't stop eating each other, except for like the whale and basking sharks. They kind of just chill and not a whole lot eats them, so that's kind of neat. But Pyjama sharks are oviparous, so egg laying. They can lay one egg at a time, so there will only be one baby. Their eggs tend to be 9.5 centimeters or 3.7 inches long, and they have tendrils, which are kind of like these long strings that come off of them. So that way, Mama Shark can anchor them to a rock or a plant or something that won't allow it to be taken away by the current, roll around, or get damaged as easily. Now, these sharks do interact with humans rather frequently, as they tend to be in shallower waters and they look pretty, so humans often want to see them. We also like catching them by accident as bycatch, and many fishers find them to be a pest since they'll take bait right off the line, so usually they'll see them and then kill them on sight, which is rather messed up. But despite all this, they are listed as least concern due to lack of evidence for population decline, which this shark of course raised a huge question for me. This shark inhabits such a small area and only lays one egg at a time, which makes me wonder, would they be more susceptible to rapid population decline compared to other sharks, as the blue shark covers pretty much everywhere and it would take a lot to put a dent in their population. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that, so I might try to reach out to a couple shark experts and see if any of them have a good answer for that, because I think that'd be a really interesting topic to talk about. But yeah, so that's what I have for the Pyjama Shark. I appreciate you guys checking in on that one too. And of course, we have our final one. Now, this one was actually requested quite a few times. I think the most recent one was about 18 days ago. So, surprise, here it is. It's the Spiny Dogfish. Now, Spiny Dogfish were one of the first sharks that I learned lived in Maryland waters, which, fun fact, so do blue sharks. So I always get a little bit excited when I see them on my timeline or hear anyone talking about them or get a chance to see them anywhere. It's really cool. They also make me think of Dogfish Head Brewery and their 60-minute IPA and Sequence Ale because I just love them so much. Dogfish Head, if y'all are looking to sponsor a podcast, I'm available. Slide in these DMs. Kidding, kind of. Land Shark's also acceptable. If there's any shark-related product that is looking to sponsor a podcast, hit me up. We can make something happen. But anyway, spiny dogfish vary in size depending on their gender, with males growing to be about 24 to 35 inches or 2 to just under 3 feet, which is about 70 to 100 centimeters or about a meter. And I'm still trying to figure out why they used these smaller measures, as my brain hears 24 to 35 inches and thinks that that's rather small until I realize it's 2 to 3 feet, and I'm like, it's like half a person. Noted. Which is just kind of disrespectful to sharks as well. But these guys are mostly gray. They do have white spots along their back, though. They have 2 smaller dorsal fins on their back as well. The first is dead center and almost looks a bit like a sail with its triangular shape. The second sits closer to the tail, but not quite as close as the Pyjama Shark's second dorsal fin, which is practically fused with their tail. Now, their caudal and pectoral fins are triangular as well, which is different from many sharks that tend to have rectangular or box-shaped caudal fins. Both their dorsal fins contain a spine, hence the name Spiny Dogfish, but of course these spines aren't just there for decoration. They're used for defense or to impale predators. They aren't done yet though, because the Spiny Dogfish felt that stabbing those trying to eat them was not enough. They also have venom in these spines, which is just pretty hardcore. Now, the venom is not lethal, but it will cause pain and can cause a predator to think twice about trying to bite this shark again in the future. Now, if humans are to be impaled, we could, emphasis on could because it varies by the individual, experience intense pain, swelling, and redness at the sting site. Other options are impaired mobility, so difficulty walking, dizziness, nausea, and abdominal pain, all of which can last for a few days or weeks. Still can't kill you though, so that's pretty good. But the good news is that they cover a very small area. And I lied again. They cover a large area. They're found in coastal waters of the eastern US and Canada, southern parts of South America, so around Chile, just around the tip to about south of Brazil, the Mediterranean Sea, Europe, including the UK, Spain, Portugal, France, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and then we also have southern Australia and all around New Zealand. Now, thankfully, humans don't have to worry about stepping on spiny dogfish or dealing with their shark venom, as they are bottom dwellers and typically reside around 50 to 149 meters, which is 160 to 490 feet, but can go all the way down to 700 meters or 2,300 feet, which, side note, it is such a weird number to cut off the first numbers at 149 meters or 490 feet, both for the shark if they just don't go that extra, meter, or scientists for just not giving them that meter. But for accuracy's sake, we'll keep it right where it is. They do have some human interaction, as in Europe, America, Canada, New Zealand, Venezuela, and Chile. They are served as food, which, after looking at a picture of the dish, it doesn't look very appetizing. So, what are we doing? Now, the spiny dogfish is served under a variety of names, including unwitting hound shark in Greece, huss or rock salmon in fish and chip shops across Europe, small salmon in France, and then sea eel in Belgium and Germany. So it's sea space eel, not seal, but sea eel. They aren't only eaten though, they're also used in fertilizer, liver oil, and pet food. Many countries have banned the sale and trade of dogfish for the entire species, or at least limit the numbers for sale. Meanwhile, others, America, have decreased regulations on fishing and drilling, allowing for more sharks to be caught and sold. Spiny dogfish like hunting in packs and are very social. They've been counted in schools of thousands, which is one of the largest schools of sharks I've heard of. Now, mind you, there could be another shark in larger congregations, but for now, I believe the spiny dogfish is in the lead. Of course, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I feel like some of y'all know the podcast material better than I do, and I actually do love that. That's pretty neat. But little side note, I forget which fact or episode it was on, but someone commented on a detail I gave about a shark and started along the lines of, well, you were kind of on the right track, and then provided the information, which I thought was super helpful. So that's, of course, why I have Correction Corner at the beginning, and I'm also more interactive on Instagram and in the Discord, as I do not know how to reply on Spotify or Apple, which is very boomer-esque of me. I'm working on it. But of course, if you guys have any questions or want to send any corrections, send them wherever you can. I also have an email. You can send it there too. But spiny dogfish eat a variety of invertebrates, including shrimp, fish, crabs, jellyfish, squid, and sea cucumber. Unless it's super old and chilling in vinegar, then it's a sea pickle. Yeah, we're going to just end the entire podcast after that joke. That was bad. That's just curtains on the entire thing. I'm just kidding. Y'all are stuck with me. So spiny dogfish are ovoviviparous, so that means the eggs hatch internally, but baby continues to develop until it's ready to be birthed into a little shark pup. Now, unlike every other animal, this rather small shark has an insanely long gestation period, typically lasting about 18 to 24 months. And for reference, the typical rule is the larger the animal, the longer the gestation period, or the time that it takes to make the baby. So elephants usually take a while, about 2 years, while mice usually it takes about a month. So spiny dogfish can give birth to about 5 to 6 pups, usually, but the numbers can vary. They are listed as vulnerable under conservation status, as their numbers do well across most of the oceans, but they have had some decline, especially in Europe, where they were fished into critical endangerment. But thankfully, there are groups such as Greenpeace that come together to help advocate for sharks, and have given the spiny dogfish in particular a chance to rebound, which their numbers have been doing pretty well. Now, that is exactly what I have for these spiny dogfish and for this episode. So I appreciate you guys listening. I am going to try to get this a little bit more routine. I appreciate y'all being here, hanging out, chatting, just kind of interacting in general. It's been a lot of fun. Comment, DM your favorite shark fact. I might just share it, some of my favorites at the beginning of the episode. Give us a 5-star rating or tell me what you want me to see do different, anything like that. I appreciate y'all being here. Be kind to each other, and I will see you guys in the next one.